Knowledge for Men, episode 91.
Welcome to knowledgeformen.com, where you're going to grow into the man you want to be. Your life will never be the same again. I can guarantee it.
Hey guys, one of the questions I've been getting a lot lately is, can you put together a list of the best books and success quotes from all of your guests and combine that into one guide? And so I've actually just done that. It's called the top 30 books and success quotes every man must live by. So out of all of the podcast episodes I've done, over 60, I finally put together this guide, and you can download it for free at kfmfree.com. Again, that's kfmfree.com. All right, guys, welcome to the show. I'm here with AJ Roberts. He's an avant-garde powerlifter, the former 308 all-time total record holder in powerlifting, with his best lifts of 1,200 5-pound squat, 910 pounds bench press, and 815 pounds deadlift. He has an unusual mix of an elite strength athlete, trainer, and businessman. AJ, happy to have you on the show.
Man, I'm glad to be here. When you told me about the show, I knew you had some awesome stuff going on, and so honored to be a guest and looking forward to rocking it out.
All right, so we start off each show, AJ, with a favorite success quote of the guest and something that they've lived by. So if you can explain what it means to you and why. All right.
It'd be from Michael Jordan, and that was one of my idols growing up. As I was started as a basketball player in my athletic career, but it is limits like fear are often an illusion, and I really live my entire life by that. I don't believe in limits. I think they're all just boundaries we create in our own head, stories we tell ourselves. And my whole life has been a constant pursuit of breaking boundaries and reaching new heights. And I kind of have that thought process. If someone's already done it, then I'm able to do it as well. And why not do it better?
All right, I like that. And I think that kind of gives us a little taste of who you are. So let's go deeper and let's get your story of how you got started with what you do.
Yeah, so it's a strange coincidence how I stumbled into it. I actually, like I said, I was a basketball player. I played for England, and that was a short-lived career. I got cut from the England squad for being too short. They told me I wasn't tall enough. I had all the skill in the world, but there was another player who was just as skilled, just as talented, who was 6'3", and I'm 5'10", so they went with him over me for the team. And that left me in a position where I said, you know what, screw you, I'm going to go to America. I'm going to play in the States and earn a college scholarship that way. And so I came over to play over here, played 1 year in high school, did really well, made the selection for the World Youth Basketball Tournament and competed over there. But my senior year I came back to play, and they didn't allow me. The Oregon School Board said, no, you can't play. You're an international student. International students are only granted 1 year. And so you can't play. So we tried to get around that. Didn't work. Spent a bunch of money at court. But what happened was that competitiveness, that competitive drive inside of me needed an outlet. And so a lady who had lived in town, she was a world champion powerlifter, and she showed me powerlifting and competitions. And we obviously trained weightlifting for sport. And I was drawn to it. I grew up watching World's Strongest Man, so I was always drawn to being strong. And so I competed in my first powerlifting competition senior year in high school and was hooked right off the bat. That was, for me, that was it. And, I was addicted to the iron, and that led to a 10-year pursuit of the world record that took me all the way from Spokane, Washington to Columbus, Ohio to train at the world's strongest gym, Westside Barbell, under Louis Simmons, who's world-renowned as the best strength coach. And 10 years later, I sat on top of that mountain, broke that world record, and achieved everything I set out to achieve.
Wow. And so I want to get an idea of where you started. Like, were you always lifting heavy weights? Were you like a larger guy growing up? Give us an idea of where you started so we can see kind of that journey.
Yeah, so in high school, obviously the competitive side of me, I always wanted to be the strongest, and I wasn't the end of junior year. By the time we graduated senior year, I had every single record, or at least had the record with the previous record holder. So, that fueled that. But I actually graduated high school, so 18, my best list, I think I had a 405 back squat, 275 bench press, and my deadlift was pretty good in high school. I had a 545 deadlift. Which for a high school kid is pretty good. So I wasn't, that strong comparatively like the kids in Texas, because I started studying strength and started reading all the books and the magazines and looking at all the records. And I was strong in my school and in the state of Oregon. But when you look at like Texas, which is a huge football state, those kids down there, their numbers were crazy. And so for me, it was just, this is where I'm at and I'm just going to move forward. But I was lucky enough, freshman year of college, to meet the bench press world record holder Ryan Kennelly, who ended his career with a 10,075 bench, so 1,075 bench press, and then the world record squat holder Brent Mikesell that ended his career with an 1,141 pound squat. And so those two were kind of mentors for me and quickly showed me the correct way to train, which was using the Westside Barbell methodologies, also known as conjugate. And so, once I knew how to train, because I had guys like that around me and was able to learn from them, everything I did was just moving forward to get stronger. I didn't really have any limitations on what was strong because I was training with some of the best in the world. And therefore, the boundaries had been expanded for me because I constantly saw bigger weights being lifted, bigger things being achieved. So if they could do it, why couldn't I? So that was the mindset.
So would you say that your environment played a large role in helping you push more weight and increasing your knowledge base?
Yeah, it's one of the things I really attribute to my success is the people I surrounded myself with, and even moving into the business world as you're learning is it's the people you're around really have the biggest influence on your life, and so the better the people are you're surrounded with, the better results you can expect. And so for me at the time, obviously being around people who'd already achieved the biggest numbers ever, it was basically a path to follow, and I could watch them in terms of their lifestyle, how they lived their life, how they trained, where their focus was, how their family life was, all these things that you don't really get to learn if you're just distant and you're not really in and around the environment. And so that shaped my way, and then of course ended up moving to Westside because I got to a point in the career where I was kind of getting to that, didn't really know if I was going to be able to get much stronger and not really sure. And the opportunity was there to make that leap and to move to Westside and be inside that gym. And the question I was asked that really tipped the scales in the favor of moving was simply, if you quit now, are you going to be happy, or do you feel like you could be a world record holder? Moving to Westside would give you the opportunity to explore that and to see if that is a possibility, if that's something you can do, or are you okay with just walking away and not even trying? And for me, it was one of those things where I knew that I believed that I was good enough and that I had all the genetics, the talent, the work effort in the world. And so if I put myself in that environment, then I would give myself the best shot at breaking the world record. And 3.5 years after being there, I broke that world record the first time, and then 6 months later broke it again. So, it's one of those things where I think a lot of people are scared to just throw themselves into the environment, throw themselves into the dragon's den, so to speak. And it's the best thing that they can do, because you really find out whether you have what it takes. And I think that fear that people have that they may not have what it takes prevents them from taking that leap of faith in the first place. And so they can tell themselves, and they can tell the story to themselves, that if they had this opportunity, or if they were here or there, then things would be different. And as an excuse they make in order to avoid taking that jump, and actually finding out whether they got what it takes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm curious to know, what was your workout routine like? Just so people can see the kind of dedication and the type of work ethic you have. What was your routine like when you were really into lifting weight?
Yeah, so we trained Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday at 8 a.m. That was the actual main workout time where we did our training. The conjugate system, you train heavy twice a week, and then you train with light weights for explosive power twice a week. So that was the core program that we trained in. Those sessions were usually 2 to 3 hours long. And then typically on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, they'd train again in the afternoon, where I'd do small workouts, 20 to 40 minutes, working on the supporting muscles, and making sure that my stability and all of that stuff was in shape, doing a little bit of, GPP work, which is conditioning work, dragging sleds and pushing prowlers and things like that, to build up the hips and the glutes and hamstrings. So essentially, I was training a minimum of 4 times, up to 8 times a week, probably about 4 hours a day when I was doing that. And then on those off days, the Tuesday, Thursday, and Sundays, I would do a lot of restoration work, recovery work. So that's when I would stretch. That's when I would go see massage therapists, chiropractic, and things like that. So the other times of the day were just as important as that time in the gym. So that was the schedule, and that's what kind of taught me, in order to live a lifestyle like that and be able to train that often, I had to create a business that supported that. And that's what led me to the online world and making money online and working online. So it kind of, one thing leads to another.
Yeah, I can see how, the heavy schedule, probably the odd hours are in the gym and taking care of things, you're going to end up needing a job that supports that. So you kind of looked and found what was available and started doing some internet marketing stuff. Well, before we dive into that part of your career and that transition, what are some of the biggest lessons that powerlifting has taught you about life?
Yeah, so like once I decided to retire from powerlifting, then I moved and I did CrossFit for a little bit. But being super competitive, I severely pushed my body too far and suffered a little couple of injuries. So I then did a bodybuilding show and obviously lost. I lost over 100 pounds for the bodybuilding show. And so each discipline has taught and given me lessons that the other hasn't. And so with powerlifting, like the consistency of training was a big lesson, showing up daily and putting in that daily work, basically suffering now for glory in the future, basically delayed gratification. And so that was what powerlifting gave me, really, was that sense of delayed gratification, working daily towards the long-term goal, and then having that, unbreakable belief in myself that I was going to achieve what it is I set out to achieve. And so I took that with me into CrossFit, and then CrossFit really took me to a place of pushing the boundaries and going beyond what I thought the body was capable of. For me, because of my excessive nature, because of being an extremist, I was considerably overtraining for CrossFit because I wanted to be a competitive athlete. I wasn't just doing CrossFit for the health benefits of it. I was pushing the boundaries, trying to be a competitive athlete and really trying to do it too fast. And so that led to the injuries. And of course, the injuries lead you to reflect back on what you were doing and really analyze and assess, is it really worth what I'm doing? And for me, I realized that like at my age, as I get older, my body, and after all those years of, lifting heavy, breaking the body down the way I did, I'm not necessarily cut out for a high impact sport without putting in the time over the years. So I decided to do a bodybuilding show because I still wanted to cut the weight. I wanted to drop that 100 pounds. And so I needed a goal to focus on. So I set the bodybuilding show as that end point so I could focus my time on that. And through bodybuilding, it taught me the discipline of diet, which really is like time blocking your time. So it taught me the discipline of scheduling, sticking to the plan and having faith in the plan. So, each discipline has given me lessons that carry over into business, carry over into life. And I think that that's the biggest thing I encourage people to do is start to draw parallels, because I find a lot of people are very successful in one area of their life, whether that be family, whether that be finances, whether that be fitness, or whether that be their faith. Those four F's seem to be, each person is really good at one of those things. It's the balance that we struggle with, right? Everyone seems to struggle with balance. And so if you're a really great family man, you have traits about you that can easily be transferred into, the fitness front, into the business front. It's just figuring out what those are and then being able to, do those again in a different discipline. And so that's what I take across from each sport that I do, from each business that I've been involved with and built. It's how do we take what we've learned from before and obviously get rid of the crap and move forward with the good. And each one kind of builds upon the next. And I think that, for me, that's how I've started to see balance in my life, because now I'm starting to understand, like, if I want a good relationship, I have to work on it daily, just like my fitness. I have to work on my fitness daily, just like I have to work on my business daily. It's not something you can ignore. So these are the lessons that kind of blend into each other and start to really create balance in my life.
Yeah, I like the four F's. You said finance, family, fitness, and faith. And I can see how if you focus on just like one of those, then that would hinder the success of the other three. So I like those pillars, I like those four F's. And I see a trend of you of always having goals and how this is helping you move forward. So can you talk about the importance of goal setting in your life?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of setting audacious goals. I think that too many people set safe, smart goals, and I'm not a fan of that, because to me that's playing small. It's easy to set a small goal and achieve it, and so although that you get there, you achieve it, you really undercut yourself and your abilities. And so I'm a big fan of audacious goals, and so I like to have big, huge goals, and then basically, most people would consider them dreams, but I like to turn that dream into a goal, and then take those goals, those big goals, and set smaller goals that will lead me towards that, and then turn that into a blueprint or a plan And so that each goal has a plan, and then you reach the goal and then you move to the next, and eventually you hit that big audacious goal. And the reason I like that is, not many people play at that level. Not many people have the confidence in order to set that crazy goal. And so most of the time you're playing the game on your own. There's not much competition. And so it actually, for me, seems a little bit easier than going after something that everyone else is going after. So goals are a huge part of my process in life, and I'm always setting them higher and higher. And the only downside with goals is no matter what you achieve, there is always the next goal. You can always reset that goal and set that next bigger goal. And so you have to learn to enjoy the journey along the way, not just that end point when you get there. You have to enjoy the entire journey and really be grateful every step of the way, and oftentimes reflect back and look at where was I now, where am I at, to make sure that you don't lose sight of that. But to me, setting huge goals is the way to go, and it never fails. And really, the thing that I notice, and I study success much like yourself, and you start to see habits that people do. It's the most successful people set the craziest goals, and I say crazy in the sense that that's what everyone else says, but in your mind, it's achievable, it's attainable, and so it's not necessarily a crazy goal. It's just huge, audacious, out there, and that's what's really separating people, is they just have a bigger vision. And I think if people challenge themselves and set higher expectations and didn't settle for mediocre results, then they would see themselves achieving greater things at a rapid pace.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier that you study successful people, and so what are some of those common habits that you found successful people do?
One of the biggest things is discipline. What I find is that, everyone wants freedom, but freedom comes from organization. And so most successful people have rituals that they do, daily rituals in terms of how they structure their day, and they wake up and they follow a morning ritual, and then the way they plan their day is done the same every day, and then they time block. So they work in chunks of time, and meetings are scheduled, and even family time is scheduled, and everything is done organized and planned. And it's chaotic in the sense that there's so much going on, but that chaos is managed through repetition, through organization, through rituals and habits. And that's really what I see with most successful people is at the end of the day, they put in more time than everyone else. They invest more, they travel more, they take bigger risks. And those are the things that I think that when you start looking at it, and you start looking at your life, you can start to say, okay, and a lot of people, they watch TV and they play computer games and they screw around on Facebook and Instagram, and I'm on those places too, but I'm on there and, I'm posting a post, and I'm not then checking 2 minutes later to see how many likes I got. I'll go back, a few hours later and maybe comment, reply to people. But I think what you find is that a majority of people, if they looked at their day, they're actually working or investing, like going to the gym or spending time with their girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, family, whatever it is, a lot less than they think, and they have a lot more time than they realize. And when you start to utilize that and really maximize the hours in the day, you can get so much more done. And like I said, it gives you that freedom to be able to take time away, because you don't constantly feel like you're overwhelmed. You're not constantly playing catch up. And, it takes a change, and it definitely takes a change of habit, but it's something that everyone can do. And we were talking before the call about, I noticed that successful people, I read an article, I think it was on Forbes, it was the top 100 successful people. And one of the traits was 86% of them got up at 5 a.m. or something like that. And so I decided that was what I was going to do. And I'm not a morning person whatsoever. I used to go to bed, 2 o'clock in the morning. And so that was a complete shift, and I had to basically reprogram my sleep patterns, which led me to learning more about sleep and how to get better sleep and deeper sleep, and basically maximize my hours that I'm resting. But once I got into that groove and started get up at 5 a.m., I found out why people are so productive at that time in the morning. And it's because there's nothing else going on. There's no emails to get back to. There's no Facebook messages, or, there's no action going on, because everyone else is asleep. Everyone else is bed. No one's texting you. No one's calling you. And so you have that entire morning to go through your rituals, to prepare yourself for the day. And by the time you get to work, or whatever that morning is, you may ride in the morning, it's uninterrupted, it's focused time, and there's nothing else you can do. And so, that's one of the things you can do. But I think that those are the things for each person to start looking at, is kind of how do they manage their day, how do they manage their time, and depending on what your goals are, whether it's in any of those four areas, you can start to say, okay, well, how much TV am I watching versus could I be spending quality time playing a game with my child or something like that? And I think those are important things that people just they get caught up and they don't really realize what's going on because they get into these habits that they have and it's just routine and they don't realize that they actually have more available to them than what's in front of them, and they just tell themselves a story that they don't have time or they're overwhelmed, when in reality most of us have plenty of time.
Right. And so a lot of the success habits is really about managing your time to be more productive and setting up daily rituals to ensure consistent results. And so you mentioned earlier when you were powerlifting, you had to find a way to make money with odd hours of training. And so this led you into internet marketing. So can you share more about this transition in your story?
Yeah, so I was running a health club in Kentucky, and the owners of that were also fitness consultants. And so they obviously had the physical side of the business, and then they had their online business, which was where the consulting was done through all online. And they kept talking about a guy named Dan Kennedy, which, he's like the king of direct response marketing. And so I got into that. And then from that, I learned about this online marketing world and started to realize that this would be a way for me to finally move to West Side and train full time there and give me the freedom to basically work anywhere that I had a laptop and a Wi-Fi connection. And so I got into the online marketing world, and basically, I started with like my own newsletter, and I was making money every time I sent that out. And then I started working with other people and helping them build their businesses. And over time, I've worked with many 7-figure companies, and currently I'm partners in an 8-figure company. And so it's one of those things where it just kind of, it made sense for my lifestyle. And basically my office was virtual, and I could partner with the best people in the world and communicate with anyone, anywhere, and get my message out to a bigger audience. And so that has, served me well over the years and given me the freedom to basically live wherever I wanted to live, travel wherever I wanted to travel. And it was just one of those things that as a powerlifter, the sport itself is, it's not really, there's no professionalism in the sport. You turn pro by reaching certain numbers, but there's no paychecks. There's nothing like that. There's a few competitions that pay out fairly good money, but nothing that's a full-time income or anything like that. Even when I was the very best, you have a supplement sponsor and things like that, but it's not like it pays enough in order to be full-time. So there was always that need for that, side income to support the lifestyle. And I was very fortunate and blessed to stumble onto online marketing and to realize the power of that. And it still blows my mind to this day that you can like send an email and watch the money come into the bank account. So it's pretty cool. And, I'm glad to be involved in that side of things, and, hope to do a lot more as we move forward.
Yeah. And what's interesting, I'm reading the book, Total Recall by Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I just finished up the section where he's talking about, bodybuilding, how he's trying to grow the sport, and he's trying to get more sponsors, and he wants people to make more money, and to kind of see the similarities between what you're talking about with powerlifting is quite interesting.
Yeah, see, like bodybuilders, what's interesting, like between bodybuilding and powerlifting, like powerlifting body image is not something we're too worried about because we're focused on maximal strength, whereas obviously bodybuilders, it's all about the image and the abs and the muscles and stuff like that. So there's a big difference. So the thing with the bodybuilders is a lot of them have an image that people are drawn to because they want to look like that, right? And it's always the joke is everyone wants to look like a bodybuilder, be as strong as a powerlifter. But as a bodybuilder, what's fascinating is even a lot of the guys who turn pro don't make enough money to train full time. It's only the guys at the very top, right? Maybe the top 10% or so that make enough to be full time in the bodybuilding industry. And you're talking about a supplement industry that's $1 billion industry, and even then, only the top guys are making enough to be full time athletes. Same in CrossFit, actually. It's a new sport. It's a great sport to look at. But really only the top guys are making a full-time living. Everyone else is running a gym or working in a gym or working a full-time job and then training, multiple times a day to train for the sport of CrossFit. So it's fascinating, like over here, I think because most athletes growing up are football players, basketball players that kind of make money off of it. But if strength itself, strength sports, bodybuilding, strongman, weightlifting, all of those things over in America here are not seen as main sports. Whereas in most of Europe and a lot of countries, strength is seen as like the biggest athletic ability, and so your best athletes end up as weightlifters to try to compete in the Olympics, whereas we don't see that over here. And so in a lot of countries, you know, a weightlifter, a powerlifter or something is full-time. It's a full-time job. They get paid by the government to do that, whereas over here it's completely self-financed, and you know, people a lot of people are doing all they can in order to pursue that dream. So it's definitely different, and it's definitely something that is fascinating. And it's funny because, you know, Arnold is now back involved in the industry now that his career is as a governor is over, and he's back into the movies, back into the fitness industry. And you know, it's interesting to see the way things are going. And the prize money goes up every year for those top people, but you know, it doesn't raise the sport as a whole up. And you know, a lot of professionals who are pro at the sport aren't necessarily pro in terms of income, and they're struggling, and they're doing everything they can in order to pursue that dream, which is, you know, something that it's a decision you have to make whether it's worth doing or not.
Yeah, and even in the UFC or in the MMA, you know, at the highest level, you know, most of those guys aren't making too much, and you know, their careers are very short-lived.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so you were able to successfully get into the internet marketing space. And so we have a lot of people who enter the online space every day because it sounds like this fun thing where it's easy to make money. Like you even mentioned earlier, where it's like you're so amazed that you can send out an email and make money. And so that makes it sound, you know, real simple, especially with the books like the 4-Hour Work Week, and there's so many others out there. Now, what do you think you were doing when you first started that enabled you to succeed? Something that separates you from the other people who ultimately fail and have to go back to the 9 to 5?
I think for me, like, I think a lot of it has come from my lifting background and just knowing that where you are today isn't where you're going to be. Like, everything is a step towards the right direction, whether it's a success, whether it's a failure. So for me, starting out, you know, it wasn't, I did a product and launched it and thought I made a bunch of money, but I didn't know what I was doing. So I had paid someone to write the copy, paid someone to do the graphics, paid someone to do the website. And so when all the dust settled, you know, I didn't make any money. I didn't know anything about continuing marketing. So there was, after the launch, like, I didn't make any more money with the product, but I didn't see that as a failure. I just saw it as a lesson, and so moved on to that next thing. And so the things that I've done that I think a lot of people aren't willing to do is number one is I'm willing to take the risks and try stuff. Most people, you know, they stop before they ever get started. They tear it down in their mind and never actually get it out there into the world. And instead of putting it out there as is and making it better as they go, or reevaluating what worked, what didn't work, and changing it, they simply stop from the beginning because in their mind they've already torn it down, so they never actually get started. The other thing that I'm big on, and I think that more people should do, is I really don't try to figure stuff out for myself. I go find the people that have already done it and invest whatever it takes to learn from them. You know, obviously I moved from England to America to play basketball, and then, you know, moved around America, you know, to ended up in Columbus, Ohio to lift. And then once I was done lifting and retired from that, you know, I moved out here to San Diego to be around, you know, the entrepreneur community. There's a great community here, as you know. And so I'm not scared to do that. And then I'm not scared to invest in masterminds and invest in products and books and constantly learning. And I think that most people, that's, you know, they try to figure it all out themselves. And that's going to be the hardest way to do it, is try to figure it out yourself. You know, find a mentor, find someone who's already done what you want to do, knows how to do what you want to do, and go invest the time to be around that person. Some people charge, some people don't charge, but there's opportunities to be connected to whoever it is you want to be connected to. And so, you know, one of the things that I always tell people is you're really probably one person away from anyone you want to know in the world. And they're like, oh yeah, really? And I'm like, yeah, 1 to 2 people away from anyone you want to know in the world. And someone goes, okay, they throw some random name out there. And so for me, like, I was business partners with Yannick Silver for Underground Online Marketing. Well, Yannick Silver holds an event with Joe Polish, and they go to Necker Island every year and hang out with Richard Branson. So they've been doing that for many years now. So Yannick and Richard Branson are really good friends. So I don't know Richard Branson, but I'm one person away. My business partner is friends with Richard Branson. Well, Richard Branson is pretty much can get you in contact with anyone in the world, right? He's one of the most powerful people. He probably knows every president, probably knows every business owner, or at least could get in contact with any business owner. So I'm technically 2 steps away from anyone I want to know in the world. And I think people underestimate the power of their network, and they underestimate that a lot of times it just there's a monetary value to that relationship. Like, for me, like to go to Necker Island with Yannick, the requirement, you have to give a donation to Richard's charity, and then you can go on the trip. I believe it's like $40,000 or $50,000. So it's not a cheap investment, but if I wanted to go and spend a week with Richard Branson, the ability to do that is there. And then that leads you to that next ability, which, there is to do. There's charity dinners you can go to. But a lot of people don't know this. It's an interesting fact. I know your audience will love this. But the Playboy Mansion, like a lot of people, their entire life, they try to get invited to a party at the Playboy Mansion, right? It's one of the hardest things to get into. It's one of the hardest things to do. One of my buddies sent me a link the other day, jokingly. It was for a VIP service, but you can buy tickets to go to the Playboy Mansion. They're like $5,000. So yeah, there's a price attached to it, but there's people who spend their entire lives trying to get into the Playboy Mansion, get an invite to the Playboy Mansion. $5,000, you're in through the door. So my point is basically that, my willingness to invest and to basically learn from those who have already done it has been a huge thing, basically leapfrogged my competition, but also the relationships I meet, the people I meet, and the relationships I build by going to these events, masterminds, has given me partnerships and business opportunities beyond what I ever even imagined. So there's more benefits to it. And I think that those two things, basically be willing to go wherever and do whatever it takes, and then, be willing to invest and seek out those who have already done what I wanted to do. Those two things combined are huge. And then, of course, the delayed gratification, which I talked about earlier, just understanding that you're not going to make $1 million overnight. It's going to take time. And then once you do that, okay, like what's the next level? 8 figures. And then what's the next level? 100 million. And what's the next level? billion or whatever. All of that stuff takes time. It's just, what you do today is seeding those harvest for the future. And you got to stay patient, and you got to understand that it doesn't all just come at you at a flood. But it's funny, when it starts to come, it's like the momentum, it's like that tipping point, and all of a sudden it just takes off, and things happen quicker than you ever imagined. But it takes time to get to that point. I think a lot of people miss that investment of time. They just want it all, and they want it right now.
Yeah, I mean, delaying gratification is a key attribute to success in anything. You're going to have to delay gratification. And I also see a common theme of putting yourself in the right environment that's going to allow the greatest chance at success, which is what you've done with moving around almost like the world here to put yourself in the right environments. Well, AJ, let's now jump into the knowledge round. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Do you ever have so many books to read that you end up not reading at all? You have so many books in your library, on your list of books that you want to read, but you don't know which books to tackle first? I know in all of my episodes, I ask guests, what are your favorite books? What are your most influential books? And they always list 3 or 4. And I always ask guests for their favorite success quote. I find that quotes can be so powerful sometimes, yet there's so many available. So what I've done is I put together a list of the top 30 books and top 30 success quotes that I think every man must live by. And these are directly from guests on the Knowledge for Men podcast. And as you know, some of the guests on my show sold their companies for millions of dollars. They're running billion-dollar organizations. They're dating coaches. They're health coaches. They're entrepreneurs. They're celebrities on TV. They're mixed martial artists. Just this wide variety of great minds. And I put together a list of the top 30 books and top 30 success quotes that every man must live by. You can download this guide for free at kfmfree.com. Again, that's kfmfree.com.
Welcome to the Knowledge Round, where the guests will be asked rapid-fire questions to give the audience invaluable pieces of wisdom to help transform their lives. Starting in 3, 2, 1, showtime.
All right, AJ, what advice would you give to someone who's feeling kind of lost or unsure of what they should do with their life?
I think the biggest thing that people fail to do is just sit in silence. Typically, I feel like we know the answers, but we don't sit and listen to ourselves. And so one of the hardest things to do is to sit in a room in dead silence and just sit there and be. And so for anyone who's struggling, what I would suggest the first thing to do is just to be alone with your thoughts and allow yourself to ask yourself the questions that allow yourself to come up with the answers. Because most of us, and it's crazy, we already know what we need to know. We're just not tuning into the channel. And so when we sit in silence, we allow our mind to start searching, we typically find the answers. And then the next thing, obviously, I would do is seek out someone that can help you. You know, find someone who can guide you, who can shortcut the process, and see what it takes to be mentored by them or to learn from them.
Yeah, I like that. And AJ, what was holding you back from becoming the man you are now today?
Ego. I think that's the hardest thing for most men to let go, is the ego. Just to accept that you don't know everything there is to know. You don't need to know everything there is to know. You're not always right. You're not always going to be right. It's not about you. And the fact that you really don't have as much control as you'd like to believe, if any at all. So that was the biggest thing for me, was learning about the ego, learning how to control the ego, how to let the ego go. And basically, once you can do that, you can start to move on to a lot greater things.
And AJ, can you name someone who's been a mentor to you? What has this person told you that really had an impact on your life?
Oh man, I've had a lot. I think, Louis Simmons to me has been the biggest influence in my life, because he, as a strength coach, obviously being one of the world's best as a coach, there's a lot you can pass on. But one of the things that he told me was, if something you do makes you unhappy, stop it. Do what makes you happy, regardless of anything else. And that thing has led me to some really life-changing things that ultimately led me to leaving Westside in the gym, which is something he never wanted to see happen. And luckily we remained friends and worked together. But, it's one of those things where I think that too many of us are going through our daily life doing things that make us unhappy, and really we could just stop. And a lot of times it takes some balls, so to speak, to make those decisions and to have the conversations. But you got to do what makes you happy.
Of course. And what are your 3 most influential books and why?
Oh, 3. I don't know if I've got 3. I think How to Win Friends and Influence People is one of the most powerful books I've read. I think it really teaches you a lot in how to communicate and basically form friendships and relationships. Too many people go about that the wrong way, and I think that's a great book. Another one probably is Think and Grow Rich, mainly because I think it changes the way you think about making money and you think about what it takes. And Think and Grow Rich, I think, changes your perception a little bit and kind of opens your mind up to some different things in terms of what it takes, but also gives you a kind of a roadmap in order to that. But again, that can be applied in other areas. All these books go outside of just what they were wrote for. And then let me see, I would say probably Millionaire Next Door. And the reason for that is because that book really changed what I thought wealth was. And so a lot of times we measure wealth in what we perceive to be, money, like expensive cars, houses, things like that. And the Millionaire Next Door really changes your perception of what real wealth is. And I think that's one of those things, comes back to the ego, and you start to realize the difference between having toys and having wealth. And then again, that goes back into what other areas of your life is, kind of what is health, what is love, all those things. And so those 3 books are probably the 3 most foundational books I would recommend. But, I could go on all day recommending books. I'm a big book reader. So
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, how many books are you reading in like a week or a month?
I read about 2 books a week, physical books, and then I do audiobooks as well. And as well as every morning I listen to a audiobook summary.
Yeah. And have you found that's kind of another one of those success habits, like reading a lot of books?
Yeah, it's one of those things that I noticed. Most successful people read a lot. I mean, you look at Bill Gates, and I think that guy reads more books than anyone. So
yeah, he was actually asked once, if you could have one superpower in the world, what would that be? And his response was to be the fastest reader in the world.
Yeah, it's funny because someone said to me, "How do you read so fast?" And here's obviously there's speed reading, which helps, but what you'll find is the more you read, the more it's review, and most of what you're reading is just the stories around the same concepts. And so a lot of the times you can skim read and you can basically flip pages, because what they're talking about, you already have an understanding of. If you read a lot, you already have an understanding, and the concepts that they're talking about. They're just wording it differently or putting it a different way. And every now and again, in a book, you'll learn 1 or 2 new things, or you'll think about 1 or 2 things in a different way. It just shifts your mindset a little bit, shifts where you're looking, that opens up that thought process. And that's really why people are able to read quicker, is because once you're reading a lot, and especially if you stick to the same kind of, like I don't read a lot of, nonfiction stuff. Most of what I read is, fiction stuff. Most of what I read is business books and biographies and things like that. And so the stories are very similar. And so a lot of times you don't have to read all the stories. You don't have to dig into that, because you're looking for those core concepts. You're looking for those big aha moments that you can take back and implement. And you really, what you're doing is just looking at how other people are structuring their business or their advice or whatever it is, versus reading every single word for word because it's the first time you've been exposed to the information. So I think that's another thing we're talking about with this getting started, and people listening might be like, man, it takes me like a month to read a book, or, I don't have time to listen to an audiobook, or which, most people could get through audiobooks easily because they're driving all the time and just throw the headphones in and they can listen. But I think the point is just get started, and what you'll find is it'll get quicker and quicker. And like now, I listen to audio at like 2x speed minimum. Some books you can listen to 3x speed if you use audible.com. But again, because you're not trying to listen word for word everything that's said, you can go at that speed. So, it opens you up. But the key is just to get started, because I didn't start listening at 2x speed. I started at, regular speed, and then went 1.5, and now I'm up to 2x, 3x. So those are the things that people can do. And it just everything kind of grows, and you get better at it all.
All right. And you can pick up one of these books for free at kfmbook.com. That's How to Win Friends and Influence People, Think and Grow Rich, or The Millionaire Next Door. You can pick up one of these books for free at kfmbook.com. I highly recommend you check this out so you can get one of these books in audiobook format. It's one of my favorite ways to consume books. And now with the next question, imagine, AJ, you had 60 seconds with your 20-year-old self. What would you tell him to do, and what would you tell him not to do?
I would probably, my 20-year-old self, let's see. So what I would probably tell them to do is have more patience. I've always wanted everything so fast, and you have to learn that it takes time, and you have to be okay with that. So definitely have more patience. And then at that age, I started seeking out mentors a lot younger than most people. So I was already doing that. But I guess the other thing that I would probably tell myself to do is to try to have more balance. I tend to throw myself into one thing 100% and neglect everything else while I'm doing that, which makes me very good at achieving my goals, but very bad at having balance. And so that's something I've kind of learned over the years, and struggle, and still struggle with, but definitely in a lot better place than I was before. So yeah, patience and balance are the two things that I would probably tell myself to have.
And what not to do?
Yeah, what not to do? Probably what not to do is to sweat the small stuff. I think too many people major in the minors, and it'd be a case of just letting things just slide off your back. Like what they say, water off a duck's back.
Yeah, and now just looking back at your life and the success you've had with powerlifting, bodybuilding, things you've done in different sports, and your transition as a successful internet marketer, what would you say is your philosophy on life and success?
I believe that all of us have a limited time, whether we want to admit it or not. We're all going to pass away. We're going to pass on at some point, and we all have the same amount of time in the day. So I look at it like, if you're not living life to the fullest, to the max, you're not pushing as hard as you can. You're not hustling. You're not taking everything to the extreme. And when I say that, I don't necessarily mean like being crazy, but I mean if you're not loving as passionately as you can love, if you're not working as hard as you can work, if you're not having as much fun as you can have, like what is the point in living? You don't get a second chance, so don't waste a minute that you have.
Bam. You couldn't have said it better. And I think you've applied that philosophy well into your own life. So AJ, let's now go into what's exciting you today, things you're working on now.
I really have moved into a purpose-driven life. And so what excites me on a daily basis is just that opportunity now to reach and help more people and transform more lives, and hopefully get people from where they are to where they want to go. And so that really drives me on a daily basis. It's just that at the end of the day, I know that what I've experienced, what I've gone through, can help other people. And really, it's selfish of me if I don't help people. It's really selfish of me to keep that to myself. And so my mission in life is to reach and touch as many lives as possible and help as many people as possible. And so that's what drives me, is just knowing that I have that, I guess, gift inside of me, or I have that ability, and I have something worth listening to that helps people. And if it helps, one person, fantastic. If it helps more, even better. And so that's what drives me every day, is just having the ability to transform lives and really make a difference.
All right. And give yourself a plug on how the audience can follow up with you.
Yeah, you can go to my website, ajroberts.com. Facebook is just facebook.com ajroberts, and then Instagram ajroberts. So those are the three places I hang out the most.
AJ, thank you so much for being on the show and sharing your story and life lessons here with my community. I really appreciate you and your time here.
My pleasure. I'm glad we could talk today, and hopefully again in the future.
All right, and that's going to wrap up episode 91 with AJ Roberts.
Thank you for listening to the Knowledge for Men podcast show. It's been a pleasure having you be a part of a thriving community of men who want to crush it in all aspects of life. I'm on a mission here to inspire millions of guys, and with your help, we're going to make a dent in the universe. Check out knowledgeformen.com for a ton of free content that's designed to help you live a remarkable life. Again, that's knowledgeformen.com. I hope to see you there. And always remember, 2014 is the official year of the crush, where we take action to get the life we've always dreamed of. This is your host, Andrew Farabee, and until next time, let's do it.